Hi, Mr. Baylis. Chris Rance, the CBC. Good to see you again. President Trump, I believe today, called for the resurrection of Keystone XL after saying he didn't need Canadian oil. Just wondering if you support the resurrection of Keystone XL, and of course, being a business case, trying to build a large pipeline, how would you resurrect such a project?
First of all, yeah, I think that's excellent news. It also goes, it's really, Mr. Trump, eh? So first of all, he's going to tax our exports at 25%, and he wants to build a pipeline. I think people should look at that and say to themselves, okay, what is he really doing? He's trying to reduce the cost of energy to the Americans because that's going to really have a positive impact on his economy. So when he says, I'm going to put 25% tariffs on every export from Canada, keep in mind that almost 50% of it is energy. 50% almost is energy. He's not going to tax that at all. That's why I've been calling for us to call out Mr. Trump and say, look, enough of these fake threats. We're going to call your bluff. That's what I want to do. Now, as respects to Keystone, I think it's a wonderful idea. That's good for us. Pour le Keystone XL, l'oléoduc Keystone XL, je serais très content si on va le construire parce que ça nous donne un autre marché pour vendre nos ressources naturelles. Ceci étant dit, je veux quand même, et ce serait très, très important qu'on construise 2 gazoducs pour apporter le gaz naturel de l'Alberta vers l'Est et l'Ouest pour diversifier nos marchés.
Émilie Bergeron, la presse canadienne. Bonjour, M. Baylis. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Justement, dans la même lignée, est-ce que la volonté de M. Trump de raviver le projet Keystone XL, ça change votre approche en termes de diversifier les marchés canadiens d'exportation de pétrole vers d'autres endroits?
Pas du tout. Non, non, non. Et puis, ce serait très, très important qu'on construise ces 2 gazoducs pour apporter le gaz naturel d'Alberta, un vers l'Est pour les marchés européens, l'autre vers l'Ouest pour les marchés asiatiques. Ça va être bon pour notre économie, bon pour nous diversifier et vraiment bon pour l'environnement. Alors, on va gagner 3 fois là-dessus. Aussi, en ce qui concerne Keystone, c'est des bonnes nouvelles, mais c'est M. Trump. Alors, je ne m'exciterai pas trop. Je vais voir tous les détails, tout ce qu'il va dire là-dedans, avant qu'on dise on s'embarque ou non. Alors, c'est dans les détails avec M. Trump, toujours là.
En question de suivi, à ce débat-là, comme celui en français, hier, il y avait beaucoup de points communs sur différents enjeux, notamment sur la réponse que le Canada doit avoir face aux menaces de M. Trump.
Ouais.
Est-ce que, comment vous considérez que vous vous êtes distingué?
De monsieur, OK, de mes autres
des autres candidats, oui.
Alors, vraiment, moi, je suis le seul. J'ai 40 ans d'expérience à faire des négociations avec des Américains. Alors, j'ai déjà rencontré cette approche, ce type comme président Trump. Et comme je l'ai souligné déjà, notre gouvernement a fait malheureusement des erreurs déjà. Notre premier ministre n'aurait jamais dû y aller à sa maison personnelle du président Trump. On n'aurait jamais dû donner quoi que ce soit en ce qui concerne la frontière avant qu'on avait négocié quelque chose là-dessus. En ce moment, nous avons donné sans rien reprendre. Alors, l'ensemble de la manière que ça a été géré avec M. Trump, je changerais complètement. Et le fait que je l'ai déjà fait, ces types de négociations, je sais comment les faire, je sais à quoi m'attendre et j'ai l'expertise et l'expérience que les autres, franchement, ils l'ont pas.
Bonsoir, M. Baylis. Frédéric Plante du Globe and Mail. The party uses a ranked ballot. Are you going to direct your supporters as to how they should rank other candidates on their ballot? If so, how?
No, I don't have any plans to do that. I think that I'm trying to sell myself to Canadians. What I'm trying to do is tell them who I am, what I stand for, and where I'm coming from. And I'll let the people make their decisions with respect to ranked ballots. I understand there's sometimes des ententes. People get together and say, let's do this or let's do that. That's not been the game that I'm playing. I understand that people might say I'm a bit of a dark horse. That's fine. But I can tell you, every time I come out and every time I get a bit of media, all I get is inundated with more and more people want to support me. So I actually think that things are going very well for me. My only challenge is time, quite frankly, because I'm sure that the more time I have, the better and better it's going for me. So I'm really focused on winning it, not trying to make a deal or position myself in any way.
Right. If you win, the last two elections have ended up with minority governments. Would you be willing to? Would you ever seek a supply and confidence agreement with another party, so yours could stay in power?
So, first things first, I'd have to win the leadership. I haven't won that yet. I tend to focus on one thing at a time. The second thing I would say is that today, just because of the threats of Donald Trump, these are very fundamental threats to our economy and our sovereignty. We have to look at government a slightly different way. So I would be ready to work with anyone so long as they're willing to work together to repulse and protect Canada against the threat of Donald Trump. Having said this, clearly you have someone like Mr. Poilievre, and he's focused strictly on himself. He's not interested in doing what's right for the country. I don't even think he's interested in doing what's right for his own party. He wants to be prime minister at all costs, and so I'd be very surprised if he was willing to do any kind of entente, any kind of deal. But I would only be looking at doing something that would be good for Canadians. Not good for the Liberal Party, but good for Canada.
Merci beaucoup. Je veux juste savoir, il y a à peu près combien de questions pour que...
Il y a une file d'environ 20 reporters.
OK. Est-ce que je pourrais vous demander, s'il vous plaît, de limiter à une question par personne pour passer le plus de monde possible?
Soyons justes envers tous. Okay. Christian Noël de Radio-Canada, quels sont vos plans pour être candidat libéral lors de la prochaine élection? Dans quelle circonscription allez-vous vous présenter?
Bien, je ne suis pas encore le chef et si je ne le gagne pas, regarde, premièrement, je suis un libéral de longue date, 48 ans. Okay? Et j'ai fait toutes sortes de postes dans le Parti libéral, dont pour 4 de ces 48 ans, j'étais député. Alors, je vais être impliqué sans doute. Mais si je ne le gagne pas, je ne sais pas si le nouveau chef va me vouloir comme candidat ou non. Je n'ai pas de circonscription qui est ouverte. Alors, ce n'est pas à moi de prendre cette décision si je ne suis pas le chef.
Donc, pas d'engagement de vous présenter, même si vous n'êtes pas chef.
Mais je ne sais pas si le nouveau chef va me vouloir.
Mais vous,
mais mon engagement, il est très, très clair là-dessus. Je vais être impliqué d'une manière ou d'une autre pour supporter le Parti libéral. Ça, c'est sans doute.
Merci beaucoup. Prochaine question. Next question, please.
Hi, Harry North for the Montreal Gazette. You spoke of building pipelines. How will you work with provinces who may not be as supportive of these?
So I think that we have not done a good job of selling pipelines. We talked about this yesterday, for example, the Energy East pipeline, which the Legault government gave a bit of pushback and the federal government just threw up their hands right away and gave up. Now, what I would tell people and what I would tell Quebecers, you asked me how I do this, is I say, look, there's 3 ways oil moves. One is by boat, one is by train, and one is by pipeline. Now, with respect to boat, that oil coming up the St. Lawrence, which is so critical to us, one leak, it's an ecological disaster of epic proportions. Now, when it comes to trains, in Quebec, we've already had Lac Mégantic. So we know how dangerous that is. We know how dangerous it is. The safest way to move oil is by pipeline. So I would make that argument, and I would have those discussions with the provinces, the premiers, and I think we could convince them, especially given the present threat that we're all feeling from President Trump.
Thanks very much. We're going to, just one question, sorry, per person, because I only have 2 minutes left on the clock. Thank you. Next question, please. Was that it? Okay, then we can take a second question then. All right. If there's no more questions, then that's a wrap then. Thank you.
Alors, merci beaucoup.
We're going to ask that you keep it to one question if possible, so we can take as many as possible. And I'll leave it there. 10 minutes.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Ms. Gould, Taria Isri, Global News. You seem to push back more on your colleagues today in English than you did in the French debate. What changed?
Look, this was an easy debate. This is a debate amongst friends, amongst family, amongst Liberals. The real debate against Pierre Poilievre, against Yves-François Blanchet, against Jagmeet Singh, that's going to come in the election. And we need to ensure that whoever is leading our party is debate ready in English and French. And what became clear to me both last night and tonight, that I'm the only person on that stage that is ready to take on the opposition, to fight for Canadians, and to win as a Liberal.
Next question.
Hi, Kyle Duggan at the Canadian Press. Was the carbon tax a bad policy, or was it just marketed badly? And just so we're clear, how long do you think that you would keep it for if you were actually Prime Minister?
So we did not do a good job as a government about talking about the price on pollution. And we allowed Pierre Poilievre to take up space on the price on pollution and, quite frankly, to mislead Canadians. What was really happening was inflation. And we didn't hear Canadians when they were saying to us, I'm having a hard time making ends meet. And Pierre Poilievre got in there and he misled Canadians on the price of pollution. So my plan is to freeze the planned increase, to cancel the planned increase, to ensure that we can give Canadians that break that they need. But I'm not going to take checks away from millions of people who rely on that money. So this is a good policy that does two things. It tackles climate change, it reduces our emissions, and it provides greater affordability for Canadians. So just because Pierre Poilievre says something doesn't mean it's true, and most of the time, it's not.
Next question.
Alex Ballingall with the Toronto Star. I think it was your closing statement. You mentioned conservative light, that the Liberals don't need conservative light. Was that something directed at Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland? And can you expand on what you meant by that being something that the Liberals shouldn't be doing right now?
Look, what we've heard from some of my colleagues is that they are taking some conservative ideas and putting them in their platform. And you know what? That's okay if they're good ideas. But when it comes to some of the stuff that they're putting forward, they're not going to make a meaningful and tangible difference in the lives of Canadians. And Liberals win elections when we are true to Liberal values, when we are bold and ambitious and have a plan and a vision for this country. And so I am proud to be a Liberal. I'm proud to be a Canadian, and I'm not going to compromise my values, compromise my convictions, because I think that's what the polling wants.
Olivia.
Oui. Voilà. Certaines de mes collègues ont pris des idées et des opinions des conservateurs. Et si ce sont les bonnes idées, c'est correct, mais ce n'est pas seulement de prendre les idées des conservateurs parce qu'ils pensent que les sondages veulent aimer ça. Moi, je ne vais pas abandonner d'être une libérale. Je suis fière d'être une libérale, je suis fière de notre bilan comme parti libéral. On a fait beaucoup de choses qui ont amélioré la vie des Canadiens. Et les libéraux gagnent des élections quand nous sommes des libéraux, quand nous sommes fidèles à nos valeurs et fidèles à nos convictions. Et je ne veux pas changer qui je suis parce que les sondages disent autre chose.
Olivia Stepanovich, CBC News. You said during the debate that the Liberals have lost touch with young people. Aren't you helping other parties defeat your government when you're saying things like that?
No, I'm just being honest. Look, one of the things that I think Canadians have been frustrated about, and quite frankly, I've been frustrated about, is like sometimes you just got to say the thing. You just got to say what people are feeling, and you have to be okay to say that. I mean, that's one of the things that I've heard from people is they're like, stop talking about things in policy terms or government terms. Talk about them in ways that are meaningful to folks. And if we don't identify the problem and talk about it, we're never going to find the solution. And so for me, it's been a couple of years where I have felt that we have lost touch. But I think what this leadership race offers, I think what my leadership candidacy offers, is an opportunity to reconnect with Canadians, to listen to them, and to make sure that we remain in touch with them. I've always been a grassroots politician. That's what propelled us into office in 2015, and it's what's going to make sure that a new Liberal government is there in 2025.
Bonjour, Madame Gould, Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada. Si vous devenez première ministre, quel serait votre déficit? Est-ce que vous le gardez à 60 milliards? Est-ce que vous l'amenez à 40, 20? Pouvez-vous me donner un chiffre, s'il vous plaît, ou un ordre de grandeur?
Non, je ne peux pas vous donner un chiffre parce que nous sommes en train de peut-être faire face aux plus grands défis de notre
économie. De réduire les dépenses.
Mais nous sommes en train de faire face à peut-être le plus grand défi économique dans l'histoire de notre pays. Ça peut arriver dans une semaine et on doit assurer que le gouvernement fédéral est là pour appuyer les Canadiens, soit avec leurs besoins économiques, soit avec protéger les industries en face à les menaces de tarifs de Donald Trump. Alors, ça ne serait pas honnête avec toi à ce moment si je te dirais un numéro, parce qu'on ne sait pas à quoi nous faisons face. Et mon engagement envers les Canadiens, c'est de les assurer que je vais être responsable d'une manière fiscale, mais je vais les protéger aussi.
Mais est-ce que vous trouvez que 62 milliards de déficit, c'était trop élevé?
Mais c'est quoi les 62 milliards? Presque 40 milliards de ça, c'est la compensation avec les Premières Nations que le gouvernement fédéral doit au peuple autochtone de ce pays. Ce n'était pas quelque chose qui était dépensé l'année dernière, c'était compté pour les années à venir. Encore une fois, c'est d'être honnête, transparent avec les Canadiens, c'est ce que je représente et c'est ce que j'engage avec les Canadiens.
Mais vous ne voulez pas de réduction des dépenses, juste pour que ça soit clair?
Moi, je veux assurer que nos dépenses soient responsables, mais le moment de couper, ce n'est pas maintenant. Ça, c'est les plans de Pierre Poilievre. Et encore une fois, quand nous faisons face à une menace extrême sur notre économie, ce n'est pas de bouleverser les fonctions publiques, c'est d'assurer que nous avons les services, les programmes pour appuyer les Canadiens, parce que je sais qu'on va sortir gagnante en cette guerre de tarifs avec les États-Unis, mais on a besoin d'avoir des bons jobs que les Canadiens peuvent retourner quand ça termine.
Ms. Gould, Michael Couture, CTV News. I noticed that you were one of the only people on that stage being the aggressor, specifically going after Mark Carney. What was your strategy behind that tonight in terms of making a mark and going specifically after Mr. Carney?
Look, I pushed all of my colleagues. I pushed Frank when it came to supporting our Canadian Armed Forces. I pushed Chrystia when it came to Indigenous reconciliation and on her record when it comes to the agreements on healthcare with provinces and territories. Again, I said I support those transfers when it comes to healthcare, but we need to ensure that we get a good deal for Canadians and that Canadians have accountability and transparency. And I pushed Mark on his economic ideas because this has to be a debate of ideas. The whole point of this Liberal leadership race is so that Liberals have a chance to see who we are as candidates, to make an informed decision about the vision that we are putting forward. And this is just a test run for the real debate that's going to come in the election. And Pierre Poilievre, Yves-François Blanchet, Jagmeet Singh, they're not going to be nearly as nice as I was. I had kid gloves on this morning, or this evening. You know, when it comes to the real debate, it was very clear to me that last night and tonight, I am the only one of the candidates who's ready to take on those opposition leaders tomorrow if needed.
How?
Oui. Alors, ce soir, j'ai dit que je vais poser des questions difficiles. Je vais pousser mes collègues parce que cette course aux chefferies du Parti libéral, c'est une opportunité pour les militants du Parti libéral de faire un vrai choix, de savoir où nous sommes sur les grandes questions des enjeux que font face les Canadiens. Et j'ai poussé tout le monde. J'ai poussé Frank sur la question de nos forces armées, j'ai poussé Chrystia sur la réconciliation et sur la santé, et j'ai poussé Marc sur les questions économiques. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, hier, c'était seulement le début, c'était seulement une première opportunité d'avoir ce débat, parce que moi, j'étais très polie en comparaison avec Pierre Poilievre, Yves-François Blanchet, Jagmeet Singh. Le vrai débat, ça va venir dans l'élection. Et ce que j'ai vu hier et aujourd'hui, c'est que j'étais la seule candidate qui est déjà prête à entrer dans un débat avec les chefs de l'opposition, soit en anglais, soit en français.
Last question.
How much of it was also the fact that you see the numbers and that there are two presumptive frontrunners right now? And were you trying to make a mark tonight for this final push?
What is very clear is that I am the only candidate who is ready to lead this party into the next election who is ready to take on Pierre Poilievre and win the next election. I have the experience, I have the chops, I have the guts, and I have the capacity to do that. What Liberals are looking for is somebody who can fight and who can win. I have always stood up for Canadians. I will always stand up for Canadians, and I'm going to win us the next election. Thank you very much. Merci tout le monde. Bonne soirée. Thank you.
Bonsoir encore. On va prendre une question et une suivie. S'il vous plaît, juste dites votre nom puis le nom de votre organisation avant de demander vos questions.
Hi. Bonsoir. That was a great debate. We have a real race, and I'm looking forward to taking your questions.
Hi, Ms. Freeland. Chris Rand, CBC. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Mr. Carney went after Justin Trudeau's economic record tonight. A lot of that is your economic record. What do you say to him, please?
I say that it is extremely important for Liberals not to parrot conservative talking points. The reality is Canada is not broken. The reality is Canada has a strong fiscal position, a AAA credit rating, the lowest debt and deficit in the G7, an economic recovery from the COVID recession, which is much stronger and faster than Harper's recovery from the 2008 recession, 17 months rather than 24. There is work to do now, absolutely. Now is the time we need to focus on jobs and growth. But the central issue for the Canadian economy and for our existence as a country right now is Donald Trump. This is an existential moment. My campaign is built around that. It is built around the recognition that this is a challenge to our existence as a country, and it is built around a plan to meet that challenge, and it is built around the reality that I am uniquely the person who can meet that challenge. I've been foreign minister, so I know how to negotiate security deals with our partners. I've been trade minister, and so I know how to negotiate economic deals around the world. I've done it. And I was Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs during COVID and led a true Team Canada effort in a challenging time. So I know how to lead a united, strong, and smart response. And what I will push back on is an idea that somehow, because we can't change President Trump, that we ought not to negotiate with him. Of course we can't change him, but we can outwit him. And I know exactly how to do that. And that is why I am the best person to be leader of the Liberal Party and the next Prime Minister of Canada.
Mr. Trump, after saying he doesn't need Canadian oil today, I believe said that he would like Keystone XL to be resurrected. Do you support the resurrection of Keystone XL, and how would you get that project back?
See, it proves my point. That proves the point with which I began the debate. What I said at the beginning of the debate was Canadians shouldn't be scared of the United States. We need them, but they also need us. And that dependence that they have on us as a market and also as a source of things they desperately need, like energy, is a source of strength. And that's why we cannot be defeatist when it comes to President Trump. And we need to know that we can outwit him, that we can stand up to Trump and we can win. When it comes to Keystone XL, I have always been a supporter of that project, and the holdup is entirely on the U.S. side. If the Americans want to build that pipeline, good luck to them. And that will actually add to our national security. It will be another avenue of their energy dependence on us.
Prochaine question.
Hi, Ms. Freeland. Zachary Chung for City News. In the conversation about Donald Trump's tariffs, you said that Canada's response should see American farmers complaining about the Canadian products that they need. Are you implying that Canadian workers would actually benefit from hurting American workers?
So American farmers have already been complaining. If you remember on February 1st, when Trump was the most clear about saying, I will impose 25% tariffs across the board on Canada, the next day, the American Farm Bureau, which is a really important Trump constituency, came out and said, Mr. President, we do not support these tariffs because more than 80% of the potash we need, which is a critical input for American farmers, comes from Canada. So American farmers themselves were pointing out to President Trump, your tariffs on Canada are a tax on us. And I think it is a very good thing for American farmers to be pointing out that reality to the president. I've spent a lot of time on U.S. media helping to draw attention of Americans to the fact that these tariffs are a self-mutilating act. The Wall Street Journal has called this the dumbest trade war in history, and the Wall Street Journal is usually a Trump-supporting newspaper. So part of our job here is to help Americans understand how they are inflicting an injury on themselves. And the sooner they understand it, the sooner the president will back down.
Follow-up? OK.
Bonjour, Lise Denis, Le Droit.
Bonjour.
Allez-vous réduire le nombre de postes dans la fonction publique et si oui, de combien?
Oui. Je pense qu'on doit, utilisant les technologies, par exemple l'intelligence artificielle, on doit, dans une manière pratique, dans une manière qui ne réduit pas les services aux Canadiens, oui, on doit réduire les postes dans le service public. Et j'ai déjà, dans mes budgets, j'ai déjà publié un plan pour faire cela.
Prochaine question.
Et je juste ajouterai qu'en faisant cela, on aura des économies qui nous permettra de livrer la marchandise pour les citoyens. Et c'est la chose la plus importante.
Bonsoir, Émilie Bergeron, la presse canadienne. Karina Gould a dit tout à l'heure, quelques instants, que certains des candidats dans la course à la chefferie empruntent des idées à Pierre Poilievre. Est-ce que vous vous sentez visé par ces commentaires et est-ce que vous trouvez que c'est justifié cette attaque-là, peu importe pour quel candidat?
Je suis ma propre personne. Et comme je viens de dire dans le débat, pour moi, cette campagne pour la chefferie est vraiment une libération personnelle parce que ça me permet de vraiment partager avec les Canadiens et Canadiennes ce que je vraiment pense et mes vraies idées, mes idées très personnelles. Je suis une vraie et fière libérale. La partie libérale était toujours la partie qui comprenait qu'on peut, on doit bâtir une économie forte avec des emplois, avec des investissements, avec des bons salaires, et qu'on peut et doit en même temps bâtir une filet sociale forte. C'était toujours la position du Parti libéral. Et je pense que c'est une grave erreur pour les libéraux de céder l'idée de bâtir une économie forte à un autre parti. Parce que la réalité est que notre parti, la partie de M. Chrétien, M. Martin, était toujours un parti qui comprenait qu'on doit faire tous les deux en même temps. Mais il y a une très très claire différence entre moi et Pierre Poilievre. Il y en a plusieurs, mais je mentionnerai, je me ciblais sur une. Et c'est que je suis la personne qui sait comment défendre le Canada contre le président Trump. La personne qui sait comment se battre contre le président Trump, se battre pour le Canada. Pierre Poilievre ne sait pas comment le faire. Pierre Poilievre est d'accord avec le président Trump. Tous les deux disent que le Canada est brisé. Pierre Poilievre veut devenir une Trump avec le sirop d'érable, une petite Trump. Il ne veut pas être la personne qui se bat contre Trump. J'ai déjà démontré que je suis la personne qui sait comment le faire et toutes les expériences dans ma vie, le travail que j'ai fait contre le président Trump la première fois, le travail que j'ai fait en défense de l'Ukraine contre le président Poutine, mon travail en tant que journaliste quand j'écrivais de la lutte contre la démocratie et la dictature, quand j'ai écrit de les oligarques et les plutocrates et leurs liens avec une politique autoritaire. Tout cela et en plus, les liens que j'ai créés en tant que ministre des Affaires étrangères avec nos alliés démocratiques, ça me permet, ça me prépare pour être le leader du Parti libéral aujourd'hui et la première ministre duquel le Canada a besoin.
OK. En suivi, comme pour le débat en français, vous avez été d'accord sur beaucoup de choses ce soir, au cours du débat en anglais, avec M. Carney. C'est pourtant votre principal rival dans cette course-là. Pourquoi est-ce que vous êtes confortable avec ce ton-là où vous avez quand même dit être d'accord avec lui? Et est-ce que vous avez réussi à vous distancier de lui aussi, comme vous voulez?
Je ne suis pas d'accord avec vous. Je pense qu'on a eu un contraste clair. Je pense que j'ai démontré comment je suis la personne la plus forte contre le président Trump. Je pense que j'ai démontré que je comprends très bien que, oui, on ne peut pas changer le président Trump, mais ça ne dit pas qu'on ne doit pas négocier avec lui et que j'ai un plan pour gagner contre le président Trump. Et j'ai dit aussi, quand on a parlé de défense, de notre sécurité nationale, j'ai dit aussi que c'est important pour nous de ne pas avoir une approche technocrate, une approche d'une fonctionnaire, qu'on doit comprendre qu'aujourd'hui, on fait face à une menace existentielle et que pour cette raison, on doit avoir une approche adéquate à ce moment critique pour le Canada.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have today.
That's the public service, ma'am. We believe you're making news on that?
No, I've been very clear, and I've been clear in my budgets and fiscal statements that I do think we need to have a carefully managed decline in the number of public servants using natural attrition, using technologies, and that is how we can afford to provide Canadians with the affordability measures that they need.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
OK. Boris en premier se reprend pour hier.
Bonjour, bienvenue à la période de questions. On va prendre une question par journaliste pour 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome to the press conference. We'll take one question per journalist for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, M. Carney. Boris Prou, journaliste au Devoir. Vous avez promis à nos collègues d'atteindre l'équilibre budgétaire, mais vous avez ensuite semblé changer la définition d'un équilibre budgétaire pour parler d'investissement.
C'est correct.
Si on reste sur la définition classique d'un déficit budgétaire, c'est-à-dire
C'est une bonne question.
Investissement, somme d'opérations, est-ce que vous vous engagez à atteindre l'équilibre budgétaire et si oui, en combien d'années?
On verra, parce que c'est le moment de bâtir l'avenir. C'est la raison pour laquelle j'ai changé le cadre budgétaire, c'est-à-dire d'avoir un équilibre opérationnel. C'est la plupart des dépenses du gouvernement du Canada, y compris les transferts, le service de la dette, des transferts aux individus, la moitié des programmes de dépenses du gouvernement. Mais il y en a des politiques du gouvernement fédéral qui sont catalyseurs d'investissements privés au Canada. Et c'est le moment maintenant, dans une crise avec les menaces américaines, et dans un moment des grands changements technologiques, y compris l'intelligence artificielle, et l'énergie propre, nous avons une grande opportunité ici au Canada d'investir pour l'avenir de notre pays. Et un petit montant des dollars fédéraux pourrait être catalyseur et on verra le montant de déficit capital. Maintenant, c'est probablement juste au moins d'un point de pourcentage du PIB. OK?
Pas plus, OK.
Pas plus à ce moment-ci. Oui.
En suivi, vous avez parlé dans l'Ouest canadien de pouvoir d'exception, de pouvoir d'urgence pour passer des projets énergétiques comme des projets de pipeline. Corrigez-moi si je me trompe. Est-ce que le Québec, par exemple, pourrait avoir un droit de veto sur un pipeline qui passe sur son territoire? Est-ce que le Québec aurait le droit de dire non?
Absolument. Absolument. C'est simple. OK?
As a reminder, we're going to take one question per journalist. Thank you. Une question par journaliste.
Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News. Why is it that you can make time to fill out your security clearance papers but won't proactively disclose your corporate interests?
Because I received those security papers as part of this process for the leadership debate. The real question is, why can I fill out my security papers in the course of 2 weeks, arrange for an interview, have a police background check, be in a position to get my security clearance, and Pierre Poilievre, after 3 years, can't do any of those things, at a time when we know there's foreign interference in our democracy and our country is under threat. And I'll say one other thing. I've had security clearance in the past. I've had Five Eyes security clearance in the past. This is important information. And the idea that you could lead a major political party in this country, let alone think you could be prime minister without having access to this information, it's absolutely irresponsible. That's the question.
But then why won't you proactively disclose your corporate assets?
I'm in the middle of a leadership campaign. I will be subject to all the conflict of interest rules and the ethics rules. I will happily comply with all of them. It's a straightforward process. That will begin as soon as this process ends if I'm selected as leader of the Liberal Party.
Next question, please. Prochaine question.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Brian Platt with Bloomberg. You've talked in general about your budget and approach, but you haven't gotten into very many specifics. When you talk about a tax cut, how are you approaching taxes? How do you want to cut? Are you talking about an income tax cut? And if so, how broad?
Yeah, okay. So, Brian, thank you for the question. There's several aspects. Some that we've been very specific about, others which we will be specific about in the coming weeks. where have we been specific? We've been specific that we're eliminating the consumer carbon tax. We're taking a variety of other measures around that. And one of those measures that is related to, but not exclusively related to that, because it's a broader aspect, is a middle-class tax cut that will more than make up for the loss of the rebate that Canadians receive. So maybe just to be clearer than maybe it was on the stage in that debate, those numbers vary by province. The national average is about $800 for a family of four, not a different number that was mentioned. But more broadly, we'll calibrate middle-class tax cut so that it is at least making up for that. It's an important aspect. We will also, I've been very clear, that we will reverse this increase in the capital gains tax that the government put in place. This is a crucial point for two reasons. One, obviously it has a tax impact for those who have put money at risk to build this country, to build businesses, build this country. This is a time to build. This is a crucial aspect of our economy. We have an opportunity to build millions of homes, an opportunity to become an energy superpower in both conventional and clean energy, an opportunity, again, we're here in Montreal, one of the centers of artificial intelligence, an opportunity to take our leadership forward on that. And half of the debate was the discussion of how we react to the Americans and how we protect us for the future. Well, part of that is we need to catalyze, and it went to the first question as well, we need to catalyze enormous private investment. The great news is we can do it, but we need bold policies in order to do that. We need big changes to economic policies. These are big, big changes, both in terms of how we manage the budget and how we're going to change the tax system, role of government, and who our trading partners are going to be. But these are big changes that are really, really going to deliver for Canadians. It's going to allow us not to get up in the morning and look on X or Truth Social and wonder what's coming from south of the border. Thank you.
Next question, please. Prochaine question.
Bonsoir, Frédéric Plante with the Globe and Mail. You were the vice chairman at Brookfield Asset Management prior to
The chair. I was the chair.
Sorry. In the fall, they moved their head office from Toronto to New York. Did you approve of that decision, and what does this say about your commitment to growing Canada's economy and betting on Canada as for now?
Okay. So two things. I'll just correct a few factual things. One, I was chair of Brookfield Asset Management. I ceased to be chair on the 15th, I think, of January when I announced for leadership. Also ceased to be chair of Bloomberg as well. Ceased to be United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance. Ceased to be a number of other things. So I resigned all my positions because I am all in for Canada, all in for this leadership, all in during this time of crisis to build our great country. Okay, that's the first thing. Second, the decision, the formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board. I do not have a connection with Brookfield Asset Management. No longer have a role, obviously, as I resigned in the middle of January. Third thing I'd note, though, is that Brookfield has several companies that represent about 10% of the Toronto Stock Exchange. It is one of the biggest investors in this country. It is one of the biggest investors in the world. And it shows the ability of this country to build. We need more of that building here in Canada. But we need government policy in clear direction in order to do that. And that's the direction that I can bring to build Canada for the future. And it is not the direction that someone like Pierre Poilievre takes his marching orders from Donald Trump, his attack lines from the MAGA world can bring that level of investment to our country. Thank you.
Dernière question, last question, Christian Noël.
Bonjour, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada.
Ah oui.
Pour équilibrer un budget, il faut faire des compressions. Pensez-vous devoir faire des coupes? À quel endroit?
Pas des coupes de fonction publique, premièrement. Deuxièmement, pas des coupes des transferts aux provinces. Pas des coupes des transferts aux individus, pardon. Mais une augmentation forte de la productivité des programmes du gouvernement. Ça fait longtemps qu'il y avait que le gouvernement a ciblé sur les résultats. Mon gouvernement va le faire. Merci beaucoup.
Mais vous avez pas dit.
Can I, in English?
We're out of time. Oh, in English, yes, in English.
I'm allowed to answer in English. Sorry, they're strict on the, my apologies, they're strict on the time for things to be equal, but for the English translation. Question was cuts in the budget or to balance the budget, the operational budget, how would we do it? Would there be cuts? En effet, ouais. No cuts to public service, no cuts to transfers to provinces, no cuts to individuals, okay, absolutely clear. Focus on broader program spending, which is a subset of the overall budget. One of the advantages I can count. I know how the budget works. I've worked on budgets over the years. It's a subset of the budget with a focus immediately on increasing the productivity of those programs. For too long, the focus of governments here has been about inputs, in other words, dollars spent. You often hear about programs, and the answer is X $100 million spent or Y billion spent, not about what the objective is. We have to manage towards those objectives. And I'll add one other thing just from the debate, and thank you all, by the way, for coming and watching the debate and following all these issues. It's hugely important. I thought Mr. Baylis made a number of important points in this regard. He and I both see an ability to bring technology and others in order to multiply the impact. And this is crucially important. We need a government that cuts ribbons more than makes announcements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, merci.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes today's press conferences.